Jennifer Cotter, and I'm the Dean of Online Learning, which doesn't just do online learning. We're here to support you in using technology to support teaching and learning in all of the different methodologies. We are super excited that this is our 15th year. I can't believe it. And I love the theme for this year's conference, which is the climate we create for learning. And as I was driving up here, I thought, this conference is really such a good example of that. Because 15 years ago, I don't know if was anyone here 15 years ago when this first started? Pam, yes, Carmen, I think Eric, I'm not sure if he's here today, Jennifer. So we have lots of people. Actually, stand up if you were here for the very first conference, or two. The very first conference was the brainchild of a faculty member who was like, hey, we're doing a lot of cool stuff at our campus. Couldn't we, and I think it was a faculty member at Larimer, and I was at Westminster as the Director of Educational Technology at that time. We were just putting in the first Instructional Design Center, and we were starting to collaborate across the college. And hey, why don't we get everybody together and do this? And so this is what we've created. We've created a climate for learning for ourselves. And I think that's so important to remember. We have the building, we have our time frame, we have our classes, we have our students, but really all those are elements, but we create the climate. So remember that. And I would encourage you during this conference to take a moment and think about what climate do you want to create? What do you want to learn for yourself? And how are you going to align those goals and find the climate that matches you, and then work with it so that you can achieve those goals. We have over 70 sessions this year by both faculty, instructors, we have student affairs staff, support staff, so all different perspectives of the college coming together to share how they're creating a climate of learning and to share those ideas with you and get your feedback. We have almost 200 attendees registered, which is a lot more than we've even had in the past. It's been 120, 140, we're up to nearly 200, and we have over 140 scheduled just for this day and tomorrow, which is more than we've had for the whole conference the last few years. So we do have some overflow rooms, depending on if we need them. It is your summer break, and I do encourage you to come and go as you please. So just know that space is available, and if we do need it, folks will be there in the hallway to direct you to where you need to go. Just some housekeeping items. Be sure to check in each day at the registration desk. That way we know who all's here so we can find you. Make sure you wear your name badge so that you are scanned in for all the sessions. It really helps us just for future planning to know how many people were here. And for those of you who are part-time instructors and faculty not on contract, being scanned for every session is how we pay you for your time that's here. And we're really grateful to Front Range Community College for providing the funding that enables us to pay the first 100 folks who registered for up to 5 hours of training. And we just keep, for this conference, and we just keep going through our list until the money's gone. So if someone only attends 2 hours, the 101st person will still get some, and so on. This year, since our theme is creating a climate for learning, and we want to keep the conference going throughout the year, we've created these conference cards. So this is your extended learning forecast, and we want you to do two things. One, if there's something really cool that you discover, a presentation that was like, wow, I wish my friend who's in Hawaii or whatever could come and see this conference, see this session, but they weren't able to be here, write it down. If maybe you had seen in the schedule a session that you really wanted to go to, but there might be 2 or 3 you want to go to. So there's one that you really wanted to go to, you couldn't go to, but you think would be useful for our colleagues across the college, write it down. Because then we'll take that information and have some encore presentations throughout the year. So we don't have to limit this climate we've created to just this special week in the summer. We can carry it on throughout the year. And then for learning, which we're all learners, it's important to set a goal, come up with something reasonable. What's a first step you can take? What resources do you need? So the other side of your card is your personal learning forecast. And this is not intended to be difficult or big. It can be if you want it to be, but it could just be, I learned how to create a soft chalk lesson. And I'm gonna do that for 1 week in my class. Write it down. And then turn this in before you leave the conference at whatever time. We have this box right here. And then we'll collect all that information. It'll help us with future planning. Hopefully it'll help you set the intention for how you're gonna carry this out in the future. And then we will also draw 2 names out of that basket, and you'll be able to select a book of your choice up to $100 so that you can learn more about whatever the topic is related to teaching and learning that you're interested in. So any other housekeeping things I forgot about? All right, you may have heard that this year is also Front Range's 50th anniversary, which is just amazing. Front Range was born in 1968, I believe under the name of Community College of Denver North. So you can see some pictures from back in the day, and I would really encourage you to check out the microsite that the marketing department has developed to capture the timeline and the history. They have a great online photo album and some videos that you can look at. We have so much to get to today. I wanted to point that out to you, but not take the time showing them. So do check that out. And then as you'll go through there, you'll notice that it does mention that online courses were first offered for the first time in 1995. Let me tell you, it has been really challenging to figure out when exactly that was. So if you disagree with that, feel free to write it down. But that's the one piece that we have right now in the timeline marking technology and how we're using technology. There's so many more markers in this room. So before you leave the conference, and I would recommend today, do it now, do it when you leave here and go to lunch, there's a timeline right on the wall between the breakfast and lunchroom and the beverage room. And you'll see that timeline, and there will be a place where above the line, I want you to put 3 dots. And I didn't bring my instructions, I'm gonna mess it up, so there are instructions right under the timeline. So there are 3 dots. One of them is for when did you first start using a learning management system in any way, okay? But everyone in this room and everyone who comes later, so if you have a colleague who's coming later, tell them, put it on the timeline. When did you first participate in an online class as a student? And then when were you directly involved in teaching or supporting an online class? And so that'll create a picture for us that I think we'll be able to see over time how it's grown and grown and grown, which will be cool. And then under the lines, you'll see, we'll have a few things marked. We'll have when we had our first Teaching with Technology conference, Stephanie did some research and pulled up some of our old logos, so those will be pasted on there. Some technologies that we've used over time, smart boards and old projectors. Add your stories there. You know, tell us what was it like the first time you taught online? Or what was it like the first time you dealt with email? It doesn't even have to be about teaching, you know? So just, I want to fill that wall with our stories, and then we'll be working with Jessica to incorporate those into the story of the college. And then, of course, if you ever think of ideas, they're continuing to collect those stories online, and it's really fun to go look at what's underneath them. So here's a picture of what that looks like, that I just described, just with some very rudimentary steps, but there's lots to fill in there on the gaps. So I was reading an article that Jessica, our marketing director who's organizing all of the events, wrote, and she had there's this quote in there from 1968. Faculty and staff who were around in those days describe it as the Wild West of community colleges. There weren't a lot of resources, limited classroom space, no technology to speak of, no college-owned parking lots, and there weren't really procedures for how to do anything. As employees from that time period will tell you, we just figured it out and made it work. I love that quote because it both shows you how much has changed. We have parking lots right now. Do we appreciate that? That's awesome. But it's still the Wild West. We're still figuring out how to make it work every day. Fast forward to 2018, Front Range is the largest community college in Colorado. We have 3 campuses plus several locations. We have a large collection of online courses, over 400 sections each semester. We have approximately 28,000 students and more than 160 degrees and certificates. We're also the #1 transfer institution for Colorado State University, CU Boulder, University of Northern Colorado, and others. So those are the beginning and the end of the timeline. Help us fill in the gaps. And then you'll notice the timeline stops, but it doesn't really. We just ran out of ribbon. But after the end of the ribbon, that's the future, okay? Think about, where are we going to go next? What are those next things going to be? And that's fun to do here too. So, the climate we create for learning. So think for a moment about what climate you live in. You might say we all live in the same climate here, maybe a little bit different than that. We might wish we were there. But what climate do you live in? And if you look around this room, we're all here, we're all sharing the same space. We're all coming from slightly different climates, but still in Colorado. But we grew up in probably even further different climates, and many of our students might even be from across the world. So think about all the climates that are coming together and are in this room. So it's the climate we see, it's also the climate that's inside of us. Where do we come from? Does your climate match what you want to do? My son tells me, why isn't it snowing? I wish it were snowing. I can't wait for it to snow, because he loves skiing. His goal is to go skiing, so he wakes up and sees snow. He's like, yay. I wake up and see the snow, and that's not what I say. Because that is not my goal. I think it's important to remember that some days life happens more than others, and we need to be compassionate about that. And just looking around the world today and hearing some of the really challenging stories that our students have overcome, the voices at graduation, sometimes this kind of stuff has happened to them. How does that change your perspective on the climate and how safe you feel? And what can we do to help make these kind of things okay? Were you expecting this? I think sometimes our students come in expecting rainbows and bubbles and that it's all going to be great, and we aren't really doing them a service if that's what we're promising them, right? We want to promise a real climate. There are also students who come in with this perspective, right? It's going to snow forever. I'm going to fail at this. I've never succeeded before. I'm going to fail again. How do we help those students change that mindset? So I think we also need to think about, how does our climate and the climate of our students impact what we do? Right? It's going to change a little bit every day. Even in Hawaii, it's not sunny every day. How do we adapt to that so that we can still achieve our goals and carry on with the plans that we have? So I leave you with this beautiful picture, more realistic, some clouds with the sun breaking through, right? What climate do you create for learning? One of the things that I love about this conference is because we're creating our climate, we're coming together less formal than a regular conference. We know each other. I just wanted to talk through a few ideas and honor. This is the learning cycle that our student success course team came up with. It started out as a spiral, and then as I was working with the transition team this fall, sort of reimagined it as this continuous circle, which is the same idea that the spiral was trying to convey. But that to learn really anything, you start by identifying a goal. You figure out what the next steps are. You identify your resources. Some you already have. What am I strong in? What can I do? And where do I need some help? You share your progress with other people. You hear their stories. That's what we're doing here, and what's so powerful about this. And then when you've done your work, you take a chance to look back and review where you're at so that you can start over and figure out what's the next meaningful goal. Am I continuing to work with this one because I'm not where I'm at yet, or am I ready to move to something else? And then this is where the climate comes in for me. We have in order for that learning cycle to work best, we have to have that sense of purpose and relevance. And that sits within a field of belonging. You know, we need to feel like I'm here, I'm part of this. We're colleagues, we're working together. And our students are looking for that too. I fit in. And the growth mindset, that belief that if I try hard, I can do it, I can change. Intelligence and what I know in my life right now isn't fixed. I can change it. So that growth mindset. And so it looks prettier on my computer, but imagine a sunrise, right? But I do really believe that that's the climate that supports our cycle of learning. So for the rest of this session today, we're going to talk about some of the big initiatives where I think we've seen some real transformation over the years at the college in terms of the climate we create for learning. And one really important one is the steps we're taking to become more inclusive. Jillian, did you want to read? Okay. So Dr. Jillian McKnight Tutine is joining us today. I'm so excited. She is our Vice President of Student Academic Affairs.
So I'm going to go off script for a little while here. I'm from St. Croix Virgin Islands, so we don't say good morning, we say morning. So I'm morning. Morning, everybody. All right, you have a little bit of island in your creating climate, where, by the way, it is 85 degrees all year long. So I'm going a little bit off script for a second, just because this has excited me about the climate. As I said, I'm from St. Croix Virgin Islands. I was raised there. I was born in Trinidad, so I was always in the Caribbean. And we have, according to HGTV, one of the most beautiful places on earth, right? Everybody wants to live there, so they go down there, and then they ask for things like granite countertops, and we're just like, what? So really what has happened is we always had a melting pot in the islands. We have 3 islands, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. And I live on the biggest one, which is St. Croix. But this year, we had tragedy. And the tragedy came in the form of a hurricane. 2, right, that hit right after each other, like literally weeks apart. They also hit our neighboring islands in Puerto Rico. So the idealism of HGTV, you see all the beauty and all the work that it takes to build a house on the island, and that quickly it can be gone. But people don't leave. What they do is they rebuild. And that's what our families are doing. I see some faces in here that actually have families on the islands too. We kind of banded together and were each other's emotional support during this time. And you do nothing different. It's kind of the reason why you're here. It's to continue the climate, right? Tammy kind of alluded to the fact that things don't always go nice and peachy keen, but they're also not snow forever. And we know that in the islands as well. We have what we call Hurricane Supplication Day, which is June 29th each year. And we actually have a holiday. We have a lot of holidays. But we actually have a holiday where we take off and we pray that no hurricanes hit during the hurricane season. And then at the end, November 29th, we have a really long hurricane season. November 29th, we have Hurricane Thanksgiving Day, which is also a time for us to go and thank God that we either didn't lose life if we had a really hard hurricane season and that we're able to rebuild, or we're thankful that no hurricanes hit. And I feel like this Teaching with Technology conference is kind of like that. It's kind of this refresh opportunity that allows you all to rebuild the climate and go, you know what? That wasn't altogether a great hurricane season, but we're here to figure out what building materials we can use this time to get better at it, to have stronger buildings, to make sure the residents are safe and that they're having a good time, because we're built on tourism, so we want you to have a really good time when you get there, even if you don't remember it afterwards. So, right, and that's kind of what our students do. They come in with their ideas of what your island will be. And it might be based on what they saw, what they heard, what advising may have told them, but you get to create what that island is going to be. And so I want you all to take this time to figure out what you want your island to be and what that climate will be. And no, it's not gonna be 85 and sunny all the time, although mostly that's what it is for us. But there is rainy season, and how do you plan for those rainy seasons and prepare your students to weather that storm, right? So the growth mindset. So I went off topic there a little bit. Now I'll just jar myself and go back to the philosophy of inclusion. Thanks for indulging me. So Front Range Community College is committed to inclusive excellence, and Andy has been very dedicated to this as a president. I point him out because I've been at other schools where it's just a catchphrase, and you know, people just put a slogan up and no work really goes into it. There's nothing behind the phrase, and here I find there's a dedication to it on behalf of faculty, staff, and including students. We also have the inclusion of online in a way that I haven't seen at most other schools either. And I worked in online a lot of years, both in industry and here, so I can tell you that. But even the dedication to this conference shows that there's a level of inclusion past just culture and race and economics. So I wanted to point that out. We want to make sure that there's an advancing opportunity for all, and I'm going to my notes only because there are certain things that came out of this work. And one of those things were the statement, the philosophy of inclusion statement, which is also online. So if you haven't read that, I'm going to read it to you today. Is it out there? Okay. Inclusion is a powerful experience. Inclusion is a powerful experience. Students and employees at Front Range Community College agree that inclusion evokes a sense of well-being, supports success, and fosters a sense of belonging in each person that says, I matter. Inclusivity within our student and employee communities is critical to achieving our vision for students at the college, that all students accomplish their educational and career goals. And there was inclusion in coming up with this statement. I applaud the folks who went back and worked on this over and over again. The philosophy of inclusion is much longer, but just as valuable. So I would encourage you all to go onto www.frontrange.edu and pull that up and get familiar with it, because we will continue the work that is associated with that as we go on in the school year. I would like to say that we have, was it at the ceremony? I attend a lot of times.
At every campus award ceremony.
Yeah. So we have a special recognition award from the president to the task force that worked on this at every campus. This person was on paternity leave when the awards were given out at Boulder County Community Campus, and John Heisel was one of the winners of this award. So John, if you come out.
Takes a village.
Great, thank you. So thank you, John, and thank you to everyone in this room. I know there are many who were part of the task force, and then many, many more people provided feedback on, like Jillian said, the many drafts. And I read what the group came up with, and this really, every time I read it, this really resonates with me personally, and I think with our students. So another aspect of inclusivity that's been going on in the background, because we've been doing so many things big at the college, right? We've been creating that philosophy of inclusion. We've been doing the pathways work with all of those initiatives. You've probably been involved in one way or another, creating maps or with on-time registration. Maybe you're a pathways advisor, helping with the new onboarding process. So many different things going on at the college. One thing that's been happening in the background has been increasing our digital accessibility. And that is also very important for inclusion, especially as we're seeing, how much technology has grown over the last few years. Every course now has a website. That it's really important that all of our students can engage in that experience. So we looked at our strategic plan. It's not in there as a specific line item, but it's in there in many different places in terms of creating a superior student experience, in terms of embracing organizational excellence. And this is not just for students who might need a screen reader or have other sort of impairment, but for all students, no matter what perspective they're coming from. This is really important. And that's where universal design comes in and has been a growing trend in education in general. How do you design both our workspaces and our living spaces, on-ramps to sidewalks, but also our learning spaces, so that they meet the needs of all of our learners. CCCS has also been supporting this, and so we do have a compliance aspect to this that ties in with our federal funding, so it's important. It's something that we care about in the world today. And so we've based it on the CCCS web accessibility procedure and also follow to make sure that we're in compliance. Some things I wanted to highlight about our accessibility plan, which you probably haven't seen, but it's been part of that background, and we'll be communicating more just on those specific things you need to know, so it's not so overwhelming, all the stuff that's happening in the background. That we see web accessibility as an ongoing process. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. We're not going to have every document perfectly accessible. We're not going to have every video captioned right away, but we're working towards that. And so how do we prioritize it so that we're meeting the most important needs first, which is our public-facing site. How do we make sure that's fully accessible? Then our intranet site, and then looking at our core sites. So I wanted to just take some time this morning to clarify a little bit of that for you. And some progress we've made. So on the public-facing website, it has a new accessible site design. It has accessible skins, so when we connect to things like MBS or our blog or the career site, that piece is accessible as well. Remediation is complete on things like enrollment checklists, program catalog sheets, degree requirements, the catalog. All that kind of stuff has been happening in the background, and I don't think Sandra's here this morning, but a huge shout out to Sandra Bergman, who's put in just numerous hours. So 90% of our web-based forms have been converted to FormStack, which is accessible. But there are still 550 PDF documents out there that are that. We're not there yet, right? But we're still working on them. And so we're working on that plan, again, behind the scenes for how we're going to get those up to date. And more information will be coming out for Jillian or Andy before the fall semester. We've also been working on internal content. So we've confirmed the accessibility of the eWolf login page. CCCS is responsible for some of their pages as well, and we collaborate with them. We've been providing a bunch of different accessibility training, so to admin assistants who have put together the report on what Current Range is doing to the CCCS board. We've been doing that training. You've probably gone to sessions at this conference, even the last couple of years, introducing folks to the concepts, and there are a lot more sessions this time around. So if you look in your program, you'll see that we've given a focus area just to help guide you through all the different sessions, and there are several on inclusivity that talk about accessibility. We've also had department-specific trainings. We've confirmed the accessibility of D2L, which again is not perfect, but has made huge strides and is one of the best learning management systems out there in terms of accessibility. And we've put together a syllabus template that's now been out there for over a year that one of our goals is always to use technology to make what we do easier or better, or ideally both. And so last year, we had the idea, let's pull together all of these, instead of all these different emails, be sure to include this in your syllabus, and this in your syllabus, and this in your syllabus. Let's pull them all together into a syllabus template so you know that it's there. And then Stephanie and Deanna have been working on making sure that that is accessible from the get-go. So you can go in, add your stuff to that, and it'll just make it a whole lot easier. And we've also expanded access to films on demand. So if you're using a lot of video, that is a great way to find video that is already pre-captioned. You know that piece is taken care of. Coming soon, we are working on just a 2-page list of what are the basic things that everyone in this room can do with just a little bit of awareness and training to make your documents more accessible to everyone. And I guess a little of my own personal background, I studied graphic design as an undergraduate. And so I learned some of the principles of design, how to have white space, because it's easier to focus on the content that's there and put things in order. And all those things that are good principles of design for everyone are the same types of things that are required for web accessibility. We're also putting together, Stephanie and Deanna have already put together a website with lots of self-paced training materials in addition to all the training they're doing. And with some little quick video links, and there'll be a quiz to mastery in there too. So you can check your understanding. How am I doing on this? And you can keep taking it until you know, okay, I've got it. I've got the basics, and this is who I'm gonna go to help me if I am in over my head, right? This is a list up here of just some of the basics, but I wanna make sure Stephanie has time to walk you through that syllabus template, and she can just point out a few of the things in that template that are specifically done for web accessibility. And as she's coming up here, I also wanted to thank Corey for all of his work pulling together all those content pieces and putting it into the syllabus.
So before I continue on to show you some of those principles of web accessibility that you'll see in the syllabus template and hopefully think, oh, I can do that. I can do this web accessibility thing. I got this. I want to thank Deanna Montalegre. And Deanna, if you could come up to the front of the room. Stand in the front so we can embarrass you properly. So I want to thank Deanna for all of the work she's been doing in the background over the last year, and prior to that on web accessibility. Deanna joined the college as an instructional designer in the CHAMP grant working with the machining program, and as part of that work in federal compliance, all of those materials had to be made accessible. So Deanna started her journey on web accessibility and what does that really mean several years ago, and she taught herself everything from the ground up. This fall, she's going to be entering a graduate certificate program where she's going to learn more about web accessibility and continue with her knowledge acquisition and skill building. But this past year, Deanna has worked in the background a lot, teaching us about web accessibility at FRCC. What are the things that we need to be communicating out to be creating accessible documents, and thinking about how do we make this a manageable and approachable step for all of our employees, our campus community members, and the like to be able to achieve. So I just wanted to say thank you, Deanna, for all of your hard work. We couldn't do it without you. So much, or most of what I know about web accessibility, I've also self-taught myself, or Deanna has taught me. So I call her multiple times a day and say, have I got this right? Did I do this right? And she said, no, take 2 steps back, and then you've got it. So she helped us a lot on taking a look at our syllabus template in terms of making sure we have the right kind of elements included in there. So I'm gonna walk you through that template, and I'm gonna point out a couple of those accessibility principles, guideline elements, whatever you wanna call them, so that you can start to get a sense of what that looks like. So give me a second to pull up that template.
Could you go back to the previous slide where it had that list?
This one?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Let me stop it for a second. Okay, so what we're seeing right now here is our FRCC syllabus template. Raise your hand if you've seen this template. Awesome. Raise your hand if you're using this template. Awesome, this is great. So a lot of folks have been through this. I wanted to point out just a couple of elements in here that are built with accessibility in mind. So the first thing that you notice when you take a look at this particular document, and I'm going to go ahead here and start with replace course title, is that it's an organized document. It's organized by headings. When I use those headings, I'm creating a structure for my document that users can easily navigate through to look for the information that's important to them. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll notice I have the navigation pane open. You can always open this in any Word application by hitting Control F, and it's going to open up this navigation panel for you. But this is going to give a user a snapshot of what's contained in your document and how it's organized. Now, I can only get this if I use headings. And those heading styles are available to me on my home ribbon up here. But that would allow for a user to take a look at what's in my document and what is it that I want to focus on. Hopefully at the beginning of the semester, students are looking at the entire document, and as we move through the course of the semester, maybe the course schedule is what's really important to them. If we don't use these heading styles, we're just using a bunch of text on the page, which is a lot harder for all users to navigate through. So that's one thing that we can all do with our documents to make them more accessible, and it's already built in my Microsoft Word home ribbon. Other principles of web accessibility are based upon how we format text. So as you're looking at the text formatting of this document, you'll notice a couple of different things. So in addition to those heading styles, which you could consider a form of text formatting, you'll notice that we are using a sans serif font. It makes it easier for users to read on the screen, not just users with a vision disability, but all users. We don't have the little feet included on our body text, so I can read through that easier and quicker. You'll also notice that when I'm taking a look at my document in terms of text formatting, I'm using things like bulleted and numbered lists. That allows for all users to quickly and easily determine and discern what kind of information you're trying to share with them in list form. But it's also a pretty critical element for somebody that uses a screen reader to be able to understand that something is being provided in list format. Visually, when we see that, we know it's pretty important. And so that allows for that same kind of inclusive access of that digital content for somebody that uses that particular tool to access. One of the other things that you also notice about this document, and I'll highlight it here under course materials, is that we have our body text indented. But we did not do that with hitting spacebar 10, 15, 20 times to go ahead and get that text indented. We used our indenting features that are available to us in our word processing. This is a pretty major one, right? So for a couple of different reasons. One, it allows for you to get consistent formatting of your document when you use the indent, when you use things like center, left align, right align. It allows for you to have a consistent look and feel in your document. For somebody that's using an assistive technology device, it ensures that they don't have to listen to something like space, 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 space 15 or 20 times until they get to that text in your document that folks are looking for. Now, I see lots of multiple spaces in documents, and I know it's a call over from when folks were just starting to learn how to use some of our word processing programs, and they aren't as robust as they are today. So a lot of these principles are built upon improvements in the technology, but you changing your practice, right? Instead of hitting that space bar, knowing that you can go ahead and hit the center button. Instead of making the title of your document, so in this particular case, the title of our document on our course syllabus says replace with course title. And that's set to be a heading 1, most important heading in the document itself. So we're using that heading tag instead of highlighting it and making it 48 points, right? So these simple changes that we can make, that can be accomplished by all of us, help us make big gains in web accessibility. A couple of other items that I want to point out that we can do as we're creating accessible documents is we can use descriptive hyperlinks or descriptive URLs. So instead of listing out an entire URL, http://www.xyzabc123.com, we can provide descriptive text for our users. This is great for everybody because it lets me discern what kind of information is going to be at that link that I'm clicking on before I actually get there. For a sighted user or a non-sighted user, I think that's a pretty imperative part of communicating well. Now you'll notice some examples of in our template. One is up here on the screen under the guaranteed transfer area. We have an entire URL listed out here, right? So that wouldn't be an example of a descriptive hyperlink, but one that we need to make sure we have the hyperlink in there exactly as intended through the Department of Higher Education for Colorado. So there are some reasons why you would choose to use a descriptive versus a non-descriptive, but for most of the work that we do, we're gonna wanna be creating descriptive hyperlinks. We also wanna stay away from things like click here, find more information here, those types of descriptors, because they don't really tell us about what we're gonna find when we get there. So just something to keep in mind about descriptive hyperlinks. One of the last things that I want to point out for you is the use of tables and documents. Who uses tables when they create documents? Everybody, right? And we like to use tables for a variety of different purposes. Sometimes we like to use tables for layout and design of pages, and that's something that we need to start thinking about as we're thinking about what it means to be more digitally inclusive, because tables are really designed to be used for data, not for layout. And this is a big one for folks to get around because it's been in our practices for a while, but we've got a lot of different tools for us or available to us that would allow for us to create those visually engaging documents and then do it in a way that is accessible, that doesn't use a table. Now, we don't want you not to use tables, but what we do want you to use is tables for laying out your data, right? An example that we have up here is our graded instructional activities area. This is a pretty simple table where we're walking through students on what are the activities of the course, how do they contribute to the overall breakdown of my points and total grade. So this looks like a nicely formatted table. I can read it really well. It's pretty clear to me what kind of information is happening inside of this table. But there are some things that are happening in the background of this table that makes it accessible for somebody who's using an assistive technology, right? Things like having a designated header row as part of my table allows for a non-sighted user to be able to figure out where we're at in the table as the screen reader is presenting the information. And it's easy to set this up. It's easy to set this up with a click of some of your Microsoft options inside of here. Another thing that I want to point out about tables is that if you take a look at this table, you'll notice that it is 2 columns and several rows beneath of it. We don't have any merged cells going on in our table, and we don't have any blank cells in our table. When we do things like merge cells and leave cells blank, the screen reader either stops reading or jumps around, and it doesn't allow for that non-sighted user who's using the assistive technology to really understand what's going on as part of that table. So those are a couple of simple things we want to make sure we're avoiding when we're using tables. No blank cells. I can mark an NA inside of there, no information, no homework due this week if we're taking a look at the course schedule, but I want to make sure that I have something there and I want to stick away from merging those cells. So these are some of the highlights of what you'll see in terms of what's in the syllabus template, but what makes this document accessible. As I look at all of your faces in the room today, I think every single one of you is capable of doing this with a little bit of training and a little bit of support from Deanna and the instructional design team at FRCC. Tammy pointed out that accessibility is an ongoing journey. Nothing is ever 100% accessible for 100% of users, but what we can do as a college to be more digitally inclusive is to set that stage, to say, these are our common expectations, our common principles of how we develop content, and from there, we can rely on more expertise such as Deanna to help guide us in terms of how do we take this document, this item to the next level in terms of accessibility. There's lots of great trainings today on accessibility and universal design, or at the conference, shall I say, starting with a session on what is web accessibility, what is universal design, give me a sense of what it is like to be a user that maybe needs to use some of these assistive technology tools. What does that feel like? I get that question asked a lot. How does a screen reader work and what does it feel like? So if you're interested to learn more, join us at 1 o'clock today for that. We're also going to be rolling out sessions at the conference related to creating accessible Word documents. So everything that I talked about today and a little bit more is going to get covered in a hands-on session. If you like to create PDFs as well, we're going to be doing a session on accessible PDFs and accessible Word documents. One last piece that I want to leave you with before I hand it back over to Tammy is that we also have a really great resource shell in D2L that I all want you to check out. It's called Designed to Make a Difference, Web Accessibility and Universal Design at FRCC. And this is a project that we've been working on for a while, and Deanna's really taken it to the next level over this past year, but that's a resource shell designed to, it's a self-help area. How do I create accessible tables in Microsoft Word? How do I use heading styles? How do I create a descriptive hyperlink? All those things that I talked about today are covered in that shell and more. I'll show you where that shell is when we talk about the new D2L interface here at the end of the session, so that can jumpstart your access. But thank you for listening in today.
So I have a quick question.
Okay, yeah.
So if we just use the template, we get the accessibility though, right?
So the template is a great place to start. You'll notice one of the steps on the checklist, and you can find a quick version of the checklist actually on the.
Sorry, you can find a quick version of the checklist on the bottom of the syllabus checklist. It's already on the intranet. I think it is even on the bottom of the template itself too. There are, I know it's on the checklist because I pulled from it last night to paste it in here. So that would be a shortcut. But yes, that's exactly why the syllabus template is a great place to start. And we started there because everyone has to have a syllabus, right? And in terms of prioritizing things, a syllabus is going to be used by more students in your class and across the college than just about any other document that you have. So that's where we're starting. There are things you can do, as you've probably discovered. I know I find this still, all the time with Word. I paste something into a document and it kind of messes something up. So if that happens to you, you might need some, give us a call. So it's not perfect, but it is so helpful to know, okay, all the content I need to have is in here. It walks me through, insert your piece here, your piece here, and that it's already pre-formatted for that. So super helpful.
Will the syllabus change any point this semester? Can we go ahead and start building?
You can go ahead and start building from the current template. We did just finish doing a very minor update, so I don't think it should stop you from doing it. The main thing that changed is there was a little bit of confusion in there around the terminology on the last day of attendance for students. So we're working on clarifying the language around that. I think just for all of you, as you're preparing your syllabus, think about who's your audience for your syllabus. It's your students. So the dates that are in your syllabus, just think about those from a student perspective, just like you would everything you say in your syllabus. So that's the main thing. But I don't think there are any other big content changes. Corey, can you think of anything I'm missing? Okay. Yeah, so we should be good to go there. Any other questions before we move on to the next piece? Oh, it is the Universal Design and Accessibility bullets are at the bottom of the checklist. And that 2-page document I talked about, we've just taken all of these, making sure they're in logical order, and providing just a brief, like 1-paragraph description. So you have a little more background on each of these, and so you can click on a video, like, okay, yeah, show me how that works on a table, and you'll be able to click on it and see what it's like. So we're not quite ready yet, so we didn't want to launch it here and then have it change in a couple of weeks. So be looking for that before the fall semester. On that same principle of focusing on what's the highest priority and doing what we can and continuing to get better, I've heard a lot of questions about videos. And do I have to stop using video in my class, which I'm like, no, because that's one of the most inclusive things that we're doing. Students get to see you and each other, see different faces, different backgrounds, hear different accents. It's engaging. You know, when I talk with the disability services folks, they say the highest percentage of folks who come into their office needing assistance have learning disabilities or attention deficit disorders. And so what helps them is for the content to be engaging and to capture their attention. And so it's always a balance, right? We don't want to, sometimes our initial reaction is, oh, I heard I have to caption, so I'm just not gonna do video. Well, if you have a wall of text, you're not including the vast majority of students in your class who look at that and go, okay, I don't know where to focus. That's not exciting me, I'm gonna move on. So we're trying to balance that. So on video, just one quick clarification. It is critically important that any public-facing video needs to be at the highest level of web accessibility standards, and so it needs to be captioned, it needs to have a transcript. We're still working on, it's more complex when you're in a class, right? So if you think about having translators come in, if you're teaching in the classroom, if you have a student who's hard of hearing and needs to have an interpreter, we make sure that we bring that person in right away and everyone in the class has access to that interpreter, which benefits that, students who know sign language and that particular student who needed that accommodation. We can't afford to have an interpreter in every single class. They're small defined groups. There's no way to do that and still have resources to do all the other stuff that we need to do. So we bring in an interpreter when it's needed. Same thing with our classrooms. So the way we prioritize video in our classrooms is, again, anything outward facing must be captioned and transcripted. Anything that's being used semester after semester, you should really caption and transcript that. That's important. And so we'll have resources to help you with that process, but that'll be part of the baseline expectation. We don't expect you to know how to do it now, but it's something that's regular, it's planned, you're ready to go. But all of you who I really commend for including the screencasts, or maybe you have a quick introduction to your week and it's just for this group of students, you want to be able to give your students feedback. Hey, great job on the test, I saw everyone really blew question 14, I need to clarify this. That's specific to that class and that group of students. And so it's fine to create that video. As the technology gets better, you've probably noticed YouTube, the auto captioning is tremendously better than it used to be. It's still not good enough for someone who really needs a screen reader or something, because you need to have 100% accuracy for that to be meaningful for them. So that's where we have the supports to help you get to that level. Good? Anything else? Okay, I'm looking at Deanna to make sure I didn't forget to mention anything important. All right, so next up, we've made also lots of progress in terms of student affairs and working together as a team. I wanted to invite Chico up. He's been promoted. He started as our director of online student success a few years ago, promoted to our associate dean of student affairs this year, along with getting pathways advisors, which we have across the college and for online now too. And so I wanted him to share with you some of the things that the student affairs team is working on to support a creative climate.
All right, so I love this theme. I love that we're talking inclusivity, working together on student success stuff. And so as Tammy was talking, and she talked a little bit about Hawaii, and Jillian talked about the islands, I'm thinking about Colorado, right? So our climate in Colorado, what do they say? The best way to prepare for climate in Colorado is to, weather-wise, to do what? Layers, right? And so I thought it's kind of the same thing. So I'm thinking about resources, and I want to share some resources with you guys. And I think about layers, right? And how our layers are like resources, and I want to share that with you guys. I also think about this room, like when we first came in, it's too hot, now it's too cold. So, and I always think that about conferences, right? Dress in layers for conferences. One of the, well, let me go here. So here's some layers, right? And so I don't think that's where we want to be. So I do feel like that's how we are sometimes, though, right? We have tons and tons of resources and tools and things, but they're not coordinated. I was going to try and wear this today. So I think where we want to be is more something like this, right? And so not maybe not personally this, but that looks better, it's more coordinated, it works. So I think that's kind of where we want to be. And so I just want to introduce you guys to some resources that we have here and talk about some of the things we've worked on over the past year. So, you know, when I think about the layers and the resources, there's stuff like, there's obviously the classroom stuff, there's things like tutoring and orientation and the technology, all those different pieces that we have. So one of the things I'll start with the online student affairs team, is Erin in here? Erin Trujillo, are you here? So everything we do in online learning kind of goes through Erin at some point. So if you don't know who to reach out to, who to connect with, you're working with a student and know where to go, Erin is a good place to start. Pretty much everything in our office goes through Erin. So I wanted to introduce Erin, but she's not here. She's probably helping with lunch. One of the things we've done for several years is the introduction to online learning, and we've had great success with that. This past year, we've made some tweaks. I think we have a new look, more interactive introduction that I think students will enjoy. Andy Ornberg has done a lot of work with that. Eric Shermer has helped him this year with that. Andy is actually in Hawaii on the Big Island, so he's experiencing some climate stuff. Way more than we are. So that's coming. There's a session at 3 o'clock that Alex and Eric are handling, and so if you want to learn more, if you're not familiar with Introduction to Online Learning, it's a requirement for all students who are taking an online class for the first time to go through that, and we've had tremendous success with it. And so Alex and Eric will be sharing more of that at 3 o'clock. So, but some of the big changes, Tammy talked about some of the big initiatives happening at the college. One of those is onboarding, right? You may have heard of that. That really came with mandatory orientation, the big piece there. And mandatory orientation, so there's Erin. Erin, come to me real quick. Say hi. There's Erin. Mandatory orientation, there's campus orientations, and there's online orientation. With all the same goals, right? We want to set the stage for learning at that point, get a bunch of those barriers out of the way so that students are ready to learn when they get to your classrooms. And part of that, building that online piece is Brandy Bays, who's right here, so online onboarding coordinator. Wave again, Brandy. Brandy was hired the last week of July, and we launched the online orientation in the beginning of November. And so she had to work with a vendor last year. If you were here last year, you may have seen innovative educators here presenting about their online orientation. And we utilized that tool. Brandy worked with that company. She worked with people all over the college to get the content we needed and build the online orientation. That's been a tremendous success. There's also presentations about the online orientation and the enrollment checklist, which all students go through, whether you're going to campus orientation or online orientation. So she'll be sharing some of the data and things that we've received in the past semester around online orientation. So that's a huge new resource for students. And then another big, advising has went through a big shift this past year, right? And so the model we've had in advising has been, student has an issue, they come to advising, we answer their question, they go away. We may see them again if they come back and have another issue, but they probably see a different advisor, that kind of thing. So very disjointed advising model. The past year, you may have heard, we hired a bunch of new advisors. We have a caseload model, so students are assigned to advisors. Advisors are assigned to career and academic communities. And so many of you will be working with advisors that are part of your programs. I think what I've already seen in this model is advisors don't have to know everything about everything, right? And so I see new advisors talking about stuff that new advisors don't normally talk about. The depth of things that they already know is really cool because they can focus in on something. Also, I think what you'll see is we'll start, they don't have to work with every single faculty member across the college either. They can start honing in on who's the main relationships, where should those be. So I want to introduce the online pathway advisors real quick as well. So I'll start in the back here. Alex Geis. Alex, which community are you working with?
Liberal arts, communication.
All right, liberal arts communication, Michelle Pagnoni. Michelle.
Business and IT.
Business and IT. Elizabeth, can you say that?
Hello.
Elizabeth Dumas.
Business and IT as well as social sciences, but mostly with ECE and education in the social sciences.
Who am I missing? Oh, Emily.
Math and science.
Emily, we expect you is we're lucky to have some part-time advising staff as well and online. So, and Rebecca Hubbard.
Math and science.
And Caitlin Luna is the assistant director of online pathway advising. She also works with undecided students. But we're really, I think we're also really lucky to have an online advising department. That's pretty unique, certainly in the state and actually in the country, to have an online advising department solely dedicated to online students. So that's pretty cool. They're also obviously working with their counterparts at all the campuses. We have that connection. And then also we will have CAC lead advisors. So Caitlin will be the lead advisor. Other directors and assistant directors will lead CACs throughout the year, kind of pulling those groups together. They'll work with the faculty liaisons that are out there. Some of you I know are maybe in this room might be faculty liaisons for CACs, and so there'll be a connection there. And I just think we'll see more and more of those connections together, so hopefully we get to be a little more coordinated with all the layers that are out there. So with that, I would say I know we have other student affairs folks who are here, financial aid, outreach, College Now. There's several, so it's great to have student affairs folks in the room as well. I think one of our best layers, one of our best resources here at the college, especially for all of you, are instructional coaches. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to our online instructional coach, Allison Plumby.
So thank you, Chico. I think another round of applause. Chico has built an amazing, I think, support structure. Like I said, really no other support structure like that in the country, and that's part of what he's been able to create. I also wanted to bring your attention back to, do you remember that sort of cycle of learning that I had that slide at the beginning where you set a goal and figure out what your next steps are and what resources you need and how you're doing, and we do that in our classes as instructors. All of those student affairs support staff are doing that in terms of how our students reaching their goal in terms of their programs and their life. And one thing that we don't have a chance to go into this morning, but I think is really cool, is the student affairs staff, the Pathways advisors, have been doing some life coach training. So you might ask Caitlin Luna about that a little bit. Which again is sort of coaching, helping them achieve those goals in all those different ways. So teaching obviously is important. And we wanted, so I invited Allison to join us and talk about teaching in 2018. I do have a slide up here, if I can find that. I'm sure where I walked off with a little remote. Oh, there it is. First, we wanted to honor all of the online master teacher nominees this year, and everyone who was nominated at your campuses as well. Everyone's using technology and you're teaching at this point. And as we heard in the comments that students put out there, the same things that students say about their campus master teachers are the same things they say about their online master teachers. And Allison's going to share some of that with us about what teaching is like in 2018. As I'm handing this over to her, please join me in congratulating the winners of this award, our campus awards, and really everyone who teaches here at Range.
Thank you. We had a number, obviously, that last slide. Look at all the nominees. Our students are so grateful to our online instructional practices, and it's just astounding to me how many nominees came in, and what an amazing job our online instructors are doing at the college. So I want to start with a poll. So pull out a device if you have one. And there's 3 ways to join the poll. You can go to a browser on your smartphone, tablet, laptop, and navigate to POLLEV for polleverywhere.com/FRCC. Or you can use your text function on your phone. If you text FRCC to 37607, you should be able to find one simple question you can answer as many times as you want. And just start adding qualities and practices you think a master online instructor should have. What makes a master teacher online? Are we streaming? In the nature of inclusivity, those of you who are watching remotely, you can also go to the poll on a device, whatever device you're watching on, and add your comments too. I love how people are helping each other.
Oh, you're kidding. Well, okay, well,
We'll go to the results and just see what's coming in. Of course, we are learning technology, and I am demonstrating a mindset for growth here because this isn't what I expected.
Yeah, we hit the maximum number of responses.
Yeah. That's,
Not supposed to happen.
it might not be. That's fine.
Okay. Here's what we have so far. So, of people who could get in. Thank you for trying that with me. This is pretty cool. So responsive is coming up pretty quickly as a very large thing. This is a word cloud. For those of you who don't know what a word cloud is, all the text that you just entered, the more times a word showed up, the larger it will be on the graphic. So multiple people said things like engagement and engaging, same thing. Responsive, technology, caring, feedback, clear, enthusiasm. Look at all these great words. Inclusivity, prompt, willing. So this is what you said in just a quick brainstorm. Where am I? This one? And this is what student nominees said about our teachers. So you can see the largest words there obviously are just the general terms for online learning, online class, students, teacher. It's the middle-sized words that I think are really interesting here. Materials, questions, organized, videos. That struck me when I saw that. The number of people using multimedia and video, like Tammy said, it's really important to our students, and it came up in this graphic in their comments for nominations. So they feel connected when instructors online are using video. And I just want to encourage you to keep doing that. Don't let the captioning or other technology issues get in your way. Definitely contact myself or the IDC teams to get that assistance to incorporate multimedia into your courses for online or hybrid in your online parts of a hybrid course. This really struck me as I was going through the comments, because so we incorporated online course quality guidelines a little over a year ago, 2 years. And so we do have online course quality guidelines. So if you're teaching online, we ask you to follow these. And these are just a few snapshots or summaries, paraphrased from the course quality guideline document, which is available at the Inside Front Range website. And you'll see a wide range of web accessible media technology teaching strategies and materials is in that document. Let's use those things. And that came up as something important to students in their comments. That courses are not self-taught online, that instructors personalize content and provide students with timely guidance and feedback weekly. And that came up in the comments over and over and over again. How prompt the instructor was with feedback, how detailed in the quality comments that they were receiving from instructors. Prompt responses to student inquiries, even in emails and things. The course design layout under our course quality guidelines includes a standardized organization, and there are several items in that. Students talked often about the clarity of navigation, how easy it was to get through the course, how clear expectations were in their online classes. And we asked that grades remain updated so students can monitor their progress, and those things came up too. But what I want to highlight from the comments, I just want to call out a few of these, because the majority of comments really were connected to the course quality guidelines, so that's working. Those are working. So if you felt ever that you were teaching an online class and it was hard to implement them, your efforts are worth it to students. Okay, just want you to hear that again. Your efforts are really worth it to students. It's not just busy work for you, just like the things you're asking them to do is not supposed to be busy work for them. It's meaningful and relevant to them. It's making it better, a better learning environment, a better climate for learning online. But some comments from students went above and beyond and were things very much related to our inclusivity statement. So here's just a few. He makes sure we understand what we are learning, what we need to know, and how to make it in the world. Okay. This is an amazing teacher who makes a class I previously found unbearable really enjoyable. There's supplemental materials. As an adult learner veteran, currently taking 18 credit hours, this class has never been a cause of stress and anxiety for me as some of my other courses are. The flexibility of instructors came up often. My instructor, I'm grateful for her kindness to me as a student with a disability. She doesn't have the ability to make my path less challenged than others in the class, but has been very supportive of me. I've seen other students, along with myself, become actively and passionately engaged in discussions and analysis of literature, including some students who had admitted at the beginning of the course that they did not generally read and or lacked confidence in their ability to understand literature. This person encourages a healthy debate, even with her, and offers engaging ways for students to consider ideas and concepts from multiple angles by asking open-ended questions and applauding new connections we make with material, really challenging our critical thinking. And just a few more. She's even invited us to come to her on-campus classroom. He encourages us to speak up when things are confusing. Equal focus is placed on learning the material and exploring the ethical necessities of this course. This teacher's taught me a new way to learn, where I am confident in myself and unafraid to discover. You see the theme? It's really impressive to me. This teacher made failure an impossibility for those who put an effort to stay on task. So you're going to hear more about growth mindset and the climate for learning that we're setting up. And these are just a few of the comments that you're already doing. You're already doing this in our online learning environment, so thank you for that.
We were going through the slides so fast, I wanted to be sure we pointed out and honored Allison, who is one of our master teachers for this year online. And we are so grateful that she is also our online instructional coach, which has been a huge, I think, climate changer for us here at the college, that we have instructional coaches at every campus and online. And so the presentation that Allison referred to for the feature presentation, the all-conference session at 10 a.m. tomorrow is The Climate We Create for Learning. And it's a collaboration and ensemble of faculty from across the college with, and it was put together by instructional coaches from across the college. April Menzies, who's been involved in many different initiatives, including SLC. Catlin and others have been involved in SLC. Kathy Menon, who is involved in Student Success Course. Amy Mann, who is involved in Making the First Day Count. All of these different things, and sometimes it's overwhelming hearing all of these different projects that everybody's working on, but they really do come together, and they're all focused on helping our students achieve their goals. So they'll be sharing their own perspectives tomorrow, and really looking forward to it. So with that, I want to bring up Stephanie Wickman one last time to talk about, this is our last category where we're seeing huge changes in the climate for learning, and that's in instructional technology and educational design. As you know, we just launched the new version of Desire to Learn on Monday, Daylight, which was actually that little seed that started the theme of the climate for learning. Daylight, let's build on that. But it's newer and brighter, and we're really fortunate to have Stephanie here to share some of the highlights with us.
Okay, Tammy mentioned this morning about this timeline that she was working on putting together, and I had some fun looking up what the educational environment has looked like for the past 50 years. And so take a look at the timeline. We printed out some really cool things, but like in the 1960s, chalkboards were being replaced with whiteboards and markers and the overhead projector. But since the 1960s up to where we are now, things have changed drastically. Things have become so much easier to use in terms of technology. Our tools are available and accessible to all users, and they're cost friendly. So take a look at that timeline when, after you're done with lunch today or while you're waiting in line, because there's a lot of cool stuff in there that I don't have time to talk about today. But before we launch into taking a look at the new D2L interface or the updated D2L interface, I want to take you on a LMS, Learning Management System, memory lane. It was really hard to find this information last night, and at one point I said, I'm going to cut myself off in a half an hour, and then I found what I was looking for. But I wanted to give you a sense of how far we've come before we take a look at the updated D2L interface. So our first learning management system that we used at Far Range Community College was WebCT. Anybody remember WebCT? A couple people raise your hand. Okay. So Far Range started using WebCT in the 90s, 1995, when we were offering, past that, 6, 7, something like that. But we started with WebCT as our online platform. We have a lot of the same tools still available to us. They just look a little bit different, right? So sorry this is small, but I was working with old tutorials, but things like content, assessment, group projects, email, communication, they were all part of our first learning management system all those many years ago. Fast forward to 2007, D2L updated FRCC Blackboard Vista. We get an updated looking interface here. We've got some tabs, to-do lists. Our courses are appearing in the middle inside of there. I have course email inside of here. At the course level, you might remember this. Who remembers Blackboard Vista? Raise your hands, right? This was our course landing page that we had here. We had a getting started module. Guess what? We still have those, and they're so important to students, right? Course materials, syllabus and schedule information. So Blackboard Vista. Then we moved to 2009, we switch over to D2L, and boy, what a change that was from what we had. We moved from a platform that was a little bit unstable at times to something that was a lot more stable, something that looked a little bit different. And at the time, everybody thought, this looks so modern, right? In 2009. So here's an example of what the quiz tool looked like. In 2012, we moved to version 10, I think, of D2L, and we updated our visual look and feel again. So we moved to something that was a little bit more modern, right? And we've been used to that same general D2L interface since 2012 when we updated. This is a picture of the course level, right? So last week, as you were finishing up all of your course materials and your grading, this is what you were looking at. All right, we're now in 2018. We've just upgraded to the new D2L interface, which is called D2L Daylight. And what you're seeing now is what's live in our environment for all of you to work in. It's a clean, modern-looking interface. I was working with the student technicians from IT and setting up this room yesterday, and we were running through some things. And one of the student technicians said, 1990 is gone. We're in the current age with D2L. So I'm going to take the rest of our time this morning to take you on a tour of the new D2L Daylight interface, what you're going to see in there if you've not logged in. Some of you may have attended our preview sessions that we offered in April, so sorry if this is a repeat, but we can never underestimate the impact that visual change has upon us as we dive into something that looks a little bit different. Before we do that, I want to take a minute to honor somebody in the online learning team who works in the background to make D2L run successful for us. This individual, Donna Hall, would you please come up to the front of the room? Donna is responsible for all of our LMS operations at FRCC, and all of the work she does is in the background. When everything's working great, you don't hear a lot from Donna, right? That's what we hope for. But she works really hard to make sure that that's the case. Donna has spent the past year in the background taking a look and learning about the new Daylight interface and learning what that means for us as we transition, things that we need to be thinking about, giving us ideas and suggestions for how we solve things that have been common problems in the past with our interface design. Donna has also stepped out as a leader at the CCCS level in working with other LMS coordinators, both to train new people that are coming on board, but to also answer questions about, I'm seeing this and it's not working quite right. What do you think? She's always the first to jump in and provide that guidance. She is also a critical team member in the RFP process for looking at learning management systems, as well as a lot of the other tools that you use in some of your daily teaching. So Donna, I just wanted to say thank you for all of the work that you do. We could not do it without you. We upgraded on Monday to our new D2L interface. Oops, let me log in. Hold on, I don't know my password. I updated to the new passphrase, extended characters. It's good. It's easy to remember. Pick something that's easy to type when you have to change yours.
Yeah.
Okay. This is that good mindset that Allison was talking about, so we're going to start fresh here.
I did the same during my presentation this morning. I got stuck 4 times.
And success! I remembered my password. So welcome to the updated D2L interface. So this is your same D2L with a new modern look and feel applied to the top. So all of your content's here. You didn't have to migrate anything, you didn't have to move anything, you didn't have to change anything. It's all here for you. All of your tools still function the same. So if you are comfortable uploading content into D2L, guess what? That's still the same. If you use the discussion board in D2L, guess what? It still works and functions the same. I know that everybody in this room uses the grade book because we use that to communicate student progress out, and that functions the same as well. It has a new look and feel applied over the top of it. So what I notice when I look at the new interface is it's bright, it has lots of white space, it has larger fonts which are easier for me to see. I love all of these things. At first I wasn't so sure about all the white space, but as I continued to use it, I noticed that I had less strain on my eyes when I was working through it, and that it was a general better user experience for me. So if you're not so keen on the white space, you will get over that, and I think that you'll learn to enjoy it. So a couple of the things that you will notice that is different about this daylight version is that we've changed our home pages, and we've updated our navigation as well. So let me walk you through some of those pieces. What we're looking at right now is the FRCC My Homepage. On your My Homepage, you can do things like see FRCC level announcements. And this is where I want to point out a terminology change. Announcements was previously news. So if you think announcement equals news, you're going to have that terminology change there. This is where we communicate high-level things with you, like, hey, if you can't be here today, we hope you're joining in from online on the live stream. And things like, we've got some maintenance coming up this weekend. So this channel still functions the same as it always has, just call it announcements. A couple of other items that you'll notice about this My Home page. At the top of the screen, we have our FRCC logo. Clicking this from anywhere in D2L is going to bring you right back to this page here. Similar to how we were organized last week when you last looked. We have a notification center still here at the top of the screen, so we still have access to internal messaging inside of D2L. You see that internal messaging represented by the envelope there. I've got some new internal messages I need to take a look at, and I can tell that because I have an orange dot. So all those tools still function the same. Their icons have been updated and styled to have a more modern look and feel to them. One area that I cruised right over here a second ago, which is quite important, is the Select a Course waffle, I like to call it, because it looks like a waffle. Under Select a Course is where one of the areas where you have access to your courses. So we've been getting questions over the last 2 days, where are my courses? How do I find my courses? One of the ways that you can find your courses is under Select a Course. We had this in our previous version of D2L. It was located on the left-hand side of the screen. But when I click on Select a Course, it's going to bring down all the courses that are associated with me in my D2L user account. Anything that I had pinned previously is still pinned for me, so we recommend pinning courses that you use frequently. Courses for the semester that you're in so that you can have easy access to them. Underneath those pinned courses are other courses that I've accessed recently in the order that I've accessed them in. One of the things that I want to point out is if I don't see what I'm looking for in my course list, how can I find that course? You can search for courses using the search bar here at the top of the screen, so you can type in what you're looking for, Mat 135, 50, Spring 18, and hit that search button, and it's going to bring up a search for you. Another way that you can filter through courses that I think that you would find helpful is the advanced search, which is going to take you to search my courses. We've got some filters that are available to you here. So we've got folks that have multiple roles within inside of the college. They can search under roles and drill down to see things for their role. Instructor is what most of you are going to use. I can also filter by semester. So right now, I'm filtering by summer 2018, all roles, because those are the courses that I want to see. There's this daylight sample course that's here that we're going to take a look at in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that just to get that loaded. And I can show you now, that course is going to appear here in my Select a Course waffle at the top. I haven't pinned it yet, because I haven't gotten that far, but I can pin that course by clicking the thumbtack, and now it's always going to be there for me regardless of how many other courses I visit. So that's one way you can find your courses. Over on the right-hand side is another way that you can find your courses. This is the visual My Courses widget. You'll notice it's organized with some image tiles with course information below it. Anything that I have pinned in D2L is going to appear for me under that visual My Courses area. And then as I scroll down, I will also be able, I've got quite a few courses pinned here, but I can view more courses that I have pinned by clicking View All Courses. So this is the visual My Courses area. Those are the two different ways you can get to courses.
So can you do recent?
What was that?
Can you do recent courses?
In the filter?
Yeah.
So you'll see recent courses appear in terms of where you've clicked in that list. We can't filter on recent because we can filter on recent?
Yeah, if you click the.
I just learned something new.
At the bottom of the My Courses, where did View All Courses, if you click there, on the right-hand side where it says Sort, and you drop that down, you can sort by.
Okay, so I can I have some sort options. I've not clicked on this menu before. Thank you, Donna. Okay. Okay, as we continue to scroll down the page, you'll also notice we have our student rights, responsibilities, and important information. This appears both at the main FRCC D2L level as well as being in all of your courses. And you should be familiar with this information. It's been around for about 2 years now, maybe, year and a half, in terms of being part of your D2L course shell. So one of the things that is really great about this new version of D2L is that it is built on the idea of responsive design. And we know from walking around and being in the classroom with students that many students like to access on a tablet. We also see that students are connected to a smartphone, as all of you are. So our previous version of D2L was not built on the idea of responsive design. If you ever tried to access it on these smaller devices, it was a cumbersome experience to say the least. What we get is the ability to be able to access D2L more easily across different device sizes with no separate mobile app needed, which is cool. I don't have to worry about keeping something updated. I can access on my phone. I can set a favorite on my, my browser for my phone. I can be able to get into D2L quickly and easily. The interface is going to scale down to meet whatever device size I have available. So I'm trying something new today. I'm going to show you my phone because I have D2L pulled up here. If this all works out right. Is it going to work? Hey, okay. So we're taking a look at the new D2L interface on my iPhone. You'll notice that it looks a little bit different right now, but I see some common elements here. So this is the smallest device size, or one of the smaller device sizes that somebody might check in on, and this is why I wanted to show you this device size, because I want to show you how it responds down to take advantage of the screen real estate available. I have the ability to be able to access all of my navigation that I had on my homepage by clicking on what we call the hamburger menu on the top left-hand side, and it brings up that navigation for me. From here, I can take a look at any of that course level navigation. I wanted to point out something really neat that is new in the way we have the navigation organized at the course level now. But if I go ahead and click on tech support, I have all my different tech support areas that I would need in the college: system check, access to the 24/7 help desk, online learning information, D2L student tutorials, and at the end of that list, you have a direct link for D2L instructor tutorials. So if I go ahead and click on that D2L instructor tutorials, oh no, that's not working right. All right. So, growth mindset and need to make some changes. But it's going to take me to an area in D2L where I can learn more about my D2L tools. I can navigate through on my phone interface by clicking that hamburger menu again. And I can go ahead and I can swipe left with my phone to get back to that main menu. Or I can click on my mountains and it's going to bring me back to my homepage area. As I scroll down the page, with my phone, I don't know if I should use my phone or my mouse at this point. As I scroll down, I have access to all of those news items that were showing for me there. And then it wraps over to the right-hand column of the screen to show me my courses. So as we go down in device size, it's going to show me everything on the left before it shows me anything on the right-hand side. All right, I'm going to flip out of small screen mode, and we're going to go back into large screen mode. Ta-da! All right, so I'm back to my desktop version of the new D2L interface, and at this My Home navigation up here, we have FRCC resources and tech support. We looked at tech support a minute ago, but underneath FRCC resources are links to things that we had previously in D2L, such as academic assistant, disability support services, the online writing center. One of the items that you all have available to you because of your role in D2L is called instructor resources. This is not visible to students because it's not released to their role. But if you take a look at instructor resources, it's going to open a new tab for you, and it's links to things that you would find helpful as you're going through your work. FRCC webmail, the Teaching with Technology intranet sites, D2L forums, those sorts of things. We also have a link here to our online instructional design center, and this is a new area that we're rolling out with our upgrade to Daylight, but we have campus-based instructional design centers, and we thought, why don't we have an online instructional design center as well, and put all of these great resources where folks can get to them digitally. So we've grown away from the faculty learning community with just our D2L tutorials to this concept of the online instructional design center. I tried to show you this a minute ago, but it didn't work quite as I thought it might. So from here, the idea is that I get to choose what I want to learn more about. Right now, we have D2L instructor tutorials for you, as well as our web accessibility shell that I mentioned at the beginning of the session today. The plan is to fill this page with additional topics related to teaching and learning with technology. So we know that many folks are learning about WebEx and want more tools to learn how to do that. We'll probably have a communicating with WebEx section. We know that we have folks that want to learn more about how do I use video in my classes and how do I do screencasting. There is on the roadmap to create or move the resources that we have related to that to this online instructional design center. I can click the mountains to return back to my home page. And I just want to pop in at the course level and show you a D2L sample course. Now, this D2L sample course is a course, live content that was run last semester, so I want to thank Deborah Throgmorton. I think she's here. Deb was so nice in our move to D2L Daylight to let us use her course content to both learn and show as a sample. So thank you, Deb, for allowing for us to work with your course. So when I'm at the course level for D2L, I notice that my homepage is different and my navigation is a little bit different. So I want to walk you through some things that you see here. So the first area that you see at the course homepage is your course level navigation. And you'll notice that this looks different than it did a couple of days ago. We used to have all of our tools out listed individually. We now have them in navigation groupings to allow for better ease of access across different device sizes. In December, we asked users if we were going to group tools together, what should go where, and we took that feedback and we built these navigation groupings that you see today. So at the course level, you have a couple of different navigation levels, or groupings, if you will. The first is course materials. Think of items that you find under course materials as being related to what does a user need to know about my course? So things like the content tool, the calendar, class list are all available underneath the course materials dropdown. The activities grouping is our next grouping. And you can think of items underneath the activities grouping as what do users need to do as part of their experience in my course? What do they need to turn in? So the first item that you see there is called assignments. This is where I want to point out a terminology change for you. The assignments tool is formerly the Dropbox tool, so think assignments equals Dropbox. The tool still functions the same, the name has just changed. You also have access to things like the discussion tool, the groups tool, quizzes tool, surveys tool, those sorts of things are underneath your activities grouping. The progress grouping is your third navigation grouping, and this is where users or students can figure out, how am I doing in the class? How am I progressing in here? Users can access the gradebook, class progress. You have access to competencies, intelligent agents, and rubrics under progress. We have our FRCC resources and tech support resource groupings that we took a look at on the course home a minute ago. And these groupings are identical at the course level as they are at the My Home. So one of the really nice improvements I think we've made in terms of getting information to users where they're at is that you can access instructor resources directly from here if you need something. Folks can access the tech support resources directly from here as well. So those are some great improvements, I think, in terms of the way that the navigation is organized. The last area that you see here is your course administration tool. Course administration was previously on your My Course homepage, but it was buried all the way at the bottom right-hand side. So some people are looking at me like, what's course administration? So where you would interface with this tool would be at the start or the prep for every term as you import, export copy components, or move your course from one semester to the next semester. So that's one of the areas that I think everybody in this room has probably used. Another tool that you have available to here that you might not know about is Manage Dates. And after you roll all of your course content over, you can use this tool to help you do a broad update of the dates in your courses. So if you've not checked that one out, I recommend that you do. We've had that for a while, but it is not a popular tool, if you will.
Let me make a comment about Managed Dates. If you haven't looked at it recently, you will be pleasantly surprised. What are your biggest complaints about the Managed Date tool? You couldn't change the end date. You couldn't change like review dates, that kind of stuff. That's all in there now. So if you haven't used it recently, go in and look at it, because they've now basically pulled in all the dates for start, end, and due dates for all the tools.
Thank you, Donna. Yes, lots of improvements to that particular tool. So to wrap up our course homepage, one of the areas that I want to point out to you that is new, so if we take a look at our course homepage, we have our updates area here that is appearing on the left-hand side. That gives me updates about what's new, what's happened in my class since I last checked in, as students post to the discussion board, as they submit quizzes, as they submit Dropbox assignments. I get notifications that those things are available to me. Students also get notifications when you grade things and leave them feedback, which is pretty cool as well. So this updates area changes based upon what's happening in the course. You have your course level announcements feed that is on the left-hand side here, and this is your tool to communicate important information with your students about what is happening. New to this version of Daylight, you also have access to a course overview area, and if you're ever curious about who's accessing your course and when they're accessing it and what tools they're using, I would recommend checking out this course overview area. We have a high-level bar graph here that allows for you just to see how many people have checked in on the course today. So it might be fun to look at this on Sunday evening right before your big assignment is due, and you will see that you have lots of student access. But if you're curious about when students are accessing and what they're doing while they're there, check out this particular tool. It gives you some insight as to a rhythm that you might see in your class. If a student is struggling, it's going to allow for you to see that, geez, they haven't logged in for the last week. And when they're here, they haven't done a whole lot while they're here. So as you run courses the summer semester and the fall semester, you'll be able to see this populate with information where you can learn a little bit more about what users are doing. I want to leave you just by popping into the content tool just to demonstrate that although the interface looks different, all of your tools still function the same and your content is here. So everybody's familiar with the content tool, I hope, since you're all posting at least your course syllabus inside of D2L. And you'll notice that when you click on the content tool for the first time, it looks different, but everything is there just as you've left it, and it's in the same place that you've left it. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we have our table of contents appearing here, so I can see everything that's going on in terms of what's been uploaded to the class. But if I go ahead and click on the Getting Started module here, everything that Deborah has set up for her course is still here. Her image that she has welcoming students, as well as her files that she has associated with this module are all appearing here. I've got a little bit of more information now on what types of files are in there, so I can see if something is a web page or a PDF document or an Excel document, but everything is there for me just as I have left it. If Deborah wanted to update the information in this module, she's going to follow the same practices that she's had since 2009 when we started D2L, right? The tools really haven't changed that much, just the buttons look a little bit different. So I'm still going to click on New and select from a variety of options to be able to add new elements to courses. The best thing that I can suggest for you all is to take a little bit of time clicking around the updated D2L interface so that you get comfortable with the new look and feel, so that you get comfortable with the way our home pages look, and that you can get comfortable with how those navigation groupings work inside of there. After you do that, my next piece of advice that I want to give you is you're prepping for the next semester. Think about what pieces in your courses have been impacted by the visual change. So if you create directions for your students on how to do something and you have screenshots of D2L in there, you're going to want to make sure you update those screenshots so that they include the new version. If you create a welcome video in your class and you've used that same welcome video for the last year and you're giving students a tour of D2L, you're going to want to make sure that you update that so what they see is current. We've got D2L daylight sessions scheduled starting at 1 o'clock through the rest of the conference, where you can come in and sit down and take a look at your course and talk with an instructional designer if you have some questions about things, to get comfortable and take a look at your content and how the navigation areas are grouping. I hope that you like the new interface. I think that it moves us into the current wave of where our tech tools are taking us in terms of design as well as functionality. And I'll turn it back over to Tammy.
Thank you, Stephanie. So thank you all for coming this morning and for all of your attention. Clearly there's so many different people. We're all involved in creating the great climate for learning we have here at Front Range and continuing to evolve it. So with that, please go enjoy a meal and visit with your colleagues, and let's continue to create a great environment for ourselves and our students. Thank you.